I'm Austin Prey, Senior Reporter here at Payments, and joining me today is Nicole Haskins, Vice President of Electronic Billing and Payment Solutions and Innovations at Paymentus. Thanks for joining us today, Nicole.
Oh, thanks for having me, Austin.
And so today we're going to be discussing an exciting topic, holistic bill payments. Just kind of diving right into this, what are the key elements of a holistic bill payment experience that differentiate it from other payment platforms?
Well, I think that there's a couple ways to look at a holistic bill pay experience, and maybe really two lenses if you think about it. The first is from the consumer perspective. So the customer, meaning, are they being able to look at consistent user interfaces? Are they being able to have the same payment and checkout experience throughout, regardless of what channel or payment method they're using? Because that consistency or that ease of familiarity, really creates then comfort, repeat users, reduces the amount of time that they certainly are taking to understand a system itself, like we all do when we try a new checkout process in the retail world. It's really no different on the billing and payment side. But the second lens is for the biller themselves. So, when you're looking to find or have a holistic, provider, really what you're looking for is the same ease and use in the back office. Do I have one single solution to look at so I see the health of my system or the analytics or the reports or reconciliation? So whether you're a consumer or a biller, a holistic payment solution really is providing efficiency, but also comfort. And that comfort is, just like we all have always heard, trying to go to this one-stop shop isn't always something that is easy to do. But depending on the vendors that you're choosing and the kind of solution they have, it's easy to identify who's a holistic vendor and who's not. And Austin, I think to elaborate a little bit on that is, we sort of internally here at Paymentus categorize them into three areas. So obviously Paymentus is a holistic provider. We've built everything from the ground up in order to create that ease for the end user, that consistency of the experience, and then also the efficiency for the biller itself in the back office. But at times we're asked, compare, your platform to one that's not holistic. And I might put them into two other categories. The first being, Austin, you're probably familiar. You and I seem to be similar ages of growing up with MacGyver on television, right? And MacGyver ultimately was always put in this precarious position to get himself out of. And what he would do is find creative tools or solutions that he would wire, duct tape, or make work together so that essentially he had a good end result. He got out of that bunker or that difficult situation he was in. And so a lot of billers have MacGyvered together, and their vendors have MacGyvered together these different stacks, these different solutions and layers to try to get to holistic. But in the end, we all know that that's not a long-term solution. The other category is sort of Saturday Night Live was great for having a play on MacGyver, which was MacGruber. So he was trying to be MacGyver, trying to get his way out of these situations by duct taping and finagling, but ultimately never could. It was always unsuccessful. And unfortunately, in the industry, we've seen a lot of MacGrubers come up lately that then fall short on support and service, because you certainly can't support great systems being a MacGyver, a MacGruber, unless you're truly a holistic stack.
Absolutely. And just maybe returning a bit to that point, you mentioned, as consumers ourselves, sometimes when we face a new, experience, there are these frictions. Can you speak maybe to what some of the current pain points or challenges are for consumers, when they go to pay their bills?
Well, I think the inconsistency is definitely one of them. I mean, in a day's time, I think about how many sites do I go to and pay for my son's Little League basketball sign up, or check out and pay my mortgage payment, or I go to Old Navy or some other retail shop to, purchase something. And each one has its own uniqueness to it. And then once you get in there, you then have different ways to pay with different payment methods, including when you add digital wallets like an Amazon Pay or certainly a Venmo. You're retaining all of these different sort of flows and processes. So when you start to break it up for the consumer, also then by channel. So if I call via the IVR, if I log on via the web, if I use my mobile first technology, those are now also totally different flows and processes too. So the average consumer is really trying to retain all the ways that they need to work within a system. And on the biller side, we can help with that by creating consistency across the board and best practices. So we've retained a lot as consumers. We look for the S in the security of the URL. We look to see the faster options like, certainly PayPal credit or Google Pay, so we have less keystrokes. We're looking for shortcuts. But on the opposite side is the biller doesn't want to be MacGyver or MacGruber. They can't take shortcuts, or the sacrifices that they get: poor integration, lots of vendors, lots of hands in the cookie jar, taking components and fees, and really hard to deal with reporting and reconciliation.
Absolutely. And so maybe, bringing this all kind of home, and this will be a two-part question to also build on some of the points that you mentioned earlier, in your view, kind of what are those key benefits that these holistic payment experiences can provide to both businesses and their consumers? And then, maybe touching on some of those, that idea of an intuitive interface. How can bill pay platforms improve this experience to make it a little more intuitive and user-friendly for consumers who, as you mentioned, are used to a bit of everything's different. They're not used to seeing the same thing.
Well, there's so many little things that you can do to help a consumer, such as having shopping cart payments so that they can make multiple payments in a single experience. Being able to recognize the device they're on. So if I'm on an Apple phone, it will allow you to display an Apple Pay method that might be first or primary. But if I'm on my Android, obviously that's not a supported item. So helping the end users sort of either through behaviors or technology solutions that help bring to the top of that experience, things are going to help them. Things like also pay now, pay later, meaning that different than pay now, pay later for some of the digital wallets that are out there, but giving them the ability to schedule a one-time payment. We're all creatures of habit. I pay about 17 bills a month, I've found, and I pay them different ways at different times. But the one thing that's consistent for me as an individual is that when that bill comes across my inbox on my desk, I want it in the trash within an hour, or at least by the end of the day. I don't want to see it again. Or if it makes it to the second day, then the third day, I feel unorganized and behind. So setting up little features for end users that they can get that bill, schedule that one-time payment, get it off their to-do list into the next step of their life, are the little pieces of highly thoughtful technology that you can produce for your consumers. I think with the second point is it really comes down to one of the biggest factors, which is price. Over the years, agencies didn't have a choice. Billers did not have a choice. You had to go get the payment processor in the rawest form. You had to then go find the user interfaces, whether it be web or IVR, text to pay, whether it be direct with that provider, or maybe a couple of them were combined with other providers. And then how do you get the processor to talk to those possibly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 vendors that are supporting your user interfaces? Well, there's gateways. And unfortunately in this space, everybody has their players, their favorite partners. And so billers over time actually built out their own siloed, disparate solutions. So finding, though, a vendor that could support all the integrations that you need, all the channels you need, and all the payment methods you need was a luxury that most billers didn't either think existed or couldn't afford. But what's fascinating is, one, it does exist. Obviously, very proud of working for and with Paymentus and our customers to roll out holistic solutions across the globe. But at the same time, the reason that we also did it was the more hands we remove from that cookie jar, the more layers we remove, it's a more efficient, better system that a biller could use, but also saves them money. Each of those layers, no one does anything for free. And so ultimately we said, look, holistic, build it from the ground up to give them the most efficient, most accessible, most transparent data that they can get their hands on. And if we can help remove some of the cost and layers along the way, it's a win-win.
Amazing. And just Do you have any kind of real world examples to help bring this to life, of a company that may have embraced a holistic payment experience and as a result gained a competitive advantage?
Absolutely. So very proud of the many case studies that are certainly on our website directly. Really appreciated and loved the white paper payments.com released. I think it's a really good synopsis of why holistic matters to you. But ultimately, that's the result of stories that our billers have been sharing for years out there is, you may not have it all with one, but the closer that you can get to removing layers, vendors, complexities, and inefficiencies, you will get the adoption, you will get the embrace of staff, the embrace of consumers and customers that drives then up satisfaction. So I would point people not only to reach out to us so that we can share with you other billers that are like you that ultimately have benefited from a holistic stack. Or, of course, all of our case studies are revolved around billers that have seen huge savings and efficiencies, huge adoption increases, because they didn't just get more, meaning they didn't get more payments methods, more channels. They got more of these options in a single solution.
Absolutely. And just, what role can technology play to, help streamline and expedite these payment processes? We've heard a lot about generative AI, predictive AI has been around for a while. We're continually operating these data-rich environments. Can technology tap into this? Are there other roles for it to play? How can this streamlining kind of be more commercialized across the marketplace?
Well, I think all billers and consumers and companies like yourself and ours, we're always looking for more data. How can we take that data and drive better behaviors, better innovations, more technology that can be brought to help benefits all sides of both the consumer side and the biller side? But the only way to do that is bring all that data together. So how do you get all that data together? Back to our holistic stack, right? So simplifying where this data is coming from really matters, because otherwise you start to go, how do I assess and review and really see how I can affect and change behaviors and build what our citizens and customers need? I can only do that by data, but the data is so disparate, just like the solutions themselves out there, that bringing it together will have that natural progression. So data is definitely number one. I think there's a lot of improvement with the data to better understand, and us as a firm, we do this, we have an entire team dedicated to understanding adoption, understanding statistics, and what that big data looks like, to drill down to say then, what can we tweak, what can we add, what can we build, whether it be using AI or some of those little features I mentioned, like pay now, pay later for one-time scheduled payments, that really will address the need that we saw from looking at our collated data.
Absolutely. And, it's a challenging time to be a business, whether you're a small business or a large business. There's a lot of kind of hostile headwinds swirling around, high inflation, high interest rates. How can a holistic payment experience kind of, not only address the pain points and challenges faced by businesses in using traditional platforms, but maybe give them an edge in these somewhat volatile operating times?
It's a great question. I mean, we're all feeling like we have to do more with less. We're all feeling the pull or the purse strings tighten. We're all struggling to find a great, workforce hires that are out there and available to fill roles and positions. And this industry hasn't slowed down at all. If anything, it's been propelled drastically forward. And a lot of vendors out there are sharing through a wide range of markets and verticals that the number one goal is to reduce the cost to serve. That's a very difficult task, to reduce the cost to serve, if you have no choice of all of these players in your ecosystem. So you first need to look at, how do I slim the ecosystem? If I can serve the clients with a product that is equivalent or more, and then I can remove those layers and I can start to see, not only can I reduce the cost to serve, but then I can do the other things, such as create preferences and notifications and solutions that now really the end consumer is pushing, which is make those items coming to me, about Nicole, make them personalized, make them track my behaviors. Put that Apple Pay, because you see I'm on my Mac, at the top of the payment type list that I can pay. think about me through the experience, which isn't easy because of the fact that a lot of times, in order for a holistic stack to think about that end user and their behaviors, they have to know a lot about them, back to the data again. So we're seeing a lot of barriers and walls being put up in the non-holistic systems to even get to the point that we all want to get to, which is more preferred notifications that are geared and tasked to that end user and consumer, more choices in payment methods, choices in payment channels, financial flexibility tools to that end user. But at the same time, number one, given the economic climate we're in, reduce the cost to serve.
Absolutely. And then, kind of the flip side of that personalization is that, we're dealing with a lot of sensitive personal data here. What are the measures that bill pay platforms can take to not only enhance the security of the payment itself, but also the privacy of the end user who, is sharing a lot of virtual identity and, personally identifiable information across these platforms?
Well, I think that billers are really challenged with how to balance the PII, the PCI, now the NACHA requirements. At the same time, I'm sure that there's a lot of plates in the air and their head is spinning around. On top of that, I have to think about how to keep that end user secure, fall within the guidelines, into card brand regulation. I mean, there's a million things to think about for sure. So more and more, we've seen billers, first of all, trust their third-party providers to say, I need you to handle this. And I need you to do it in a way that insulates both the consumer and the biller from not only having to think about and worry about it, but also stay ahead of where things are going. So that whether it be the innovation, the security, or the overall, what you're allowed as far as the data to be available to both staff or the end user to convey, they have other jobs to do. There's generally very rarely at a biller site someone that only is responsible for NACHA compliance or only responsible. They're wearing lots of other hats. So trusting a third-party provider to do that for you at a cost that is efficient, certainly bundled, like we hear lots and lots of time on TV and commercials, bundled is the way to go to also, create less space between your entire process flow that you're trying to organize out there.
And just maybe looking forward, I know it's difficult. Things are moving so fast, particularly in today's digitized world. But if you had a crystal ball, what might be some of the future trends or innovations that you see as further enhancing both the appeal and the effectiveness of these holistic payment experiences?
Well, I think, it's funny, oftentimes in conferences, and we do quite a few a year, I spend time before speaking sessions with the audience to just share with what have they spent their week doing? What have they been hearing about? And obviously everyone's talking about chatbots and machine learning and artificial intelligence. And those are definitely trends and places that companies need to go, including Paymentus has gone there as well with some of our tools and innovations released in the past year. And we see that being propelled forward. We see it moving faster into more of predictive payments. But another big area that we're focused on, and something payments.com has also covered, is the cash bill pay client. So the same firms that are often trying to solve the innovation puzzle by having AI and machine learning, all those fun things, are also trying to say, but how do I rise and raise adoption? And so have they tackled then the entire demographic to serve? So as an example, 25% of most of the country is actually still either cash preferred or underbanked, meaning that they can't or choose not to use ACH and credit cards, but they do gravitate towards retail, digital payments and digital wallet payments. And so with that in mind, how do you drive adoption? You address the entire demographic. You create tools and technology that says, you, Mr. Underbanked or Mrs. Cash Preferred, I'm also going to serve you through the same solution, the same holistic platform. So again, you're reducing that biller from having to go get another vendor that can just deal with retail or can deal with point of sale or kiosk, bringing that ecosystem beyond just digital traditional payments and saying, nope, we're going to also bring in the audience that doesn't traditionally use it to truly try to get an entire customer base to utilize what that investment is at that biller site.
Absolutely. And just touching maybe a little bit further upon that ecosystem, are there additional features or functionalities that platforms can introduce, or should, look to down the line introduce, in order to add convenience and value to the consumers?
Well, I think we're all struggling to make sure that we're completely on top of all mobile first technology, all AI, all fun words that we all use. For us, we actually took a step back and said, we need to help the traditional client, not necessarily the client that is the most progressive Gen Zer with every digital wallet they make. We want to figure out how to help them all. And we want to always keep on trend, not just watching what's happening. So as an example, if TikTok Pay actually becomes a thing, as a vendor, you're responsible for trying to help your biller see ahead, see what the future holds. Is it safe to put TikTok Pay that doesn't exist yet onto a biller platform? Not yet, but when it's stable, having roadmaps that embrace where you see the commercialization going in consumer behavior. Right now, we're kind of in an interesting spot as it's stabilized. You start to hear some things around real-time payments, or even Chat GPT has come up in some sessions recently. But is it stable enough to put into what is considered probably one of the top 3 areas you don't mess with a consumer, their money? Not yet. But when it is, having firms that are ready to go there, build there, and embrace it also is another benefit of a holistic platform, is it's just a plugin.
Yeah, it's a one-stop, exactly. And truly the kind of the future is full of one-stop shops. I think that's a great note to end on. Thank you so much for your time today, Nicole.
Thanks, Austin.
Great and very informative conversation.
Appreciate it.